Hey, everybody, welcome back to your Dawn of Autonomy podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host, CEO of P3 Tech Consulting, and publisher at Autonomy Global. If you haven't signed up for our newsletter, please do that. But we are on the Dawn of Autonomy, and we're in a month that we've dedicated to this theme of public safety and defense, sponsored by Mark 43. And today we have a good friend of the show, Tom Adams, with us. Now, he's been on the show before in his own capacity when he was creating his company earlier, 2 years ago, 2023, actually,
Yeah.
Aero Vigilance. But now he's with DroneShield, kind of build up this giant counter UAS hub and pass that off to a big media group. He's just been doing great things in the industry. So, Tom, great to have you on the show.
Thanks. It's great to be here. I appreciate it, Don. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I kind of gave Tom's mini bio right there, but let's go back further, Tom, if you don't mind. For those that don't know, if you could tell them a little bit about before you jumped into this entrepreneur and kind of industry, like company role, what you were doing.
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out which part of my career. We all have different chapters in our career that we seem to go through. So I've had a 20-year public safety law enforcement career with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I really had the opportunity. I think one of the things that I learned from my time in the military, which was one of my other careers that I did, was that you are your own best career manager. And so I took that to heart throughout my entire working career. And one of the things that I did in the Bureau that I think was really important for me is I raised my hand to become a special agent bomb technician. And that kind of started me on the path to where I am now, because I don't think any of us 25 years ago, really even, none of us started doing this. We all kind of stumbled into it one way or another just through various decisions that we made within our career. And I think that was kind of the pivotal point for me, was becoming a special agent bomb technician. And then the other piece of that was I eventually decided to get my master's in unmanned systems from Embry-Riddle. And that's what started me in this path to getting into the unmanned world, which then eventually I pivoted to get into the counter UAS world. So when I started this program, the unmanned systems master's program from Embry-Riddle, I didn't even know that the FBI had a counter drone program, to be quite honest with you. I was probably a couple years into my program. I was at a public safety UAS conference at a really nice winery to the west of Charlottesville, and an agent that was part of the counter drone program was there speaking. I'm like, wow, the Bureau's got a counter drone program. I'm getting a master's in unmanned systems. I'm a bomb technician. There's kind of like a little bit of a mix here that I can maybe potentially be a part of. And so when an opportunity came to join that program, I jumped on it because it was something that I really wanted to learn more about, and I felt that there was a lot of parallels to the two different types of the unmanned and the unmanned systems masters, as well as my time as a bomb technician. So I jumped on that and spent 3 years on the FBI's counter drone team. We covered a lot of large public venues and high profile events and venues throughout the United States. And what was interesting about that is I joined the team not too long after the Department of Justice and Department of Homeland Security received their authorities, which they're currently using now. And so what was interesting about that is none of us were given a handbook or training. We did have training, obviously, but we really had to rely on a lot of common sense and knowledge about drones and risk management principles in order to really perform this job and to do it in a way that didn't increase the risk to the public and critical infrastructure that we were trying to protect. So long story short, spent 3 years doing that, retired from the FBI a little over 2 years ago, and then came into the industry just so I could have a way to continue to contribute to the industry, just from a different capacity, bringing in some operational experience and perspectives that maybe weren't out there quite so broadly as they maybe are now.
Yeah, and as I said, I mean, did so much with Aero Vigilance, your initial company that you created with Casey Flanagan, another fellow FBI, former FBI agent. By the way, Casey, that video is out there. It was on the Dawn of Drones in our last iteration before we rebranded to the Dawn of Autonomy. So we'll drop that link. And if you want to learn more about Tom's background and his philosophy, check out our Full Tilt Tech Industry Leadership Talks podcast. Tom was also on that. So if you want to dive deep into his background and history and get a little bit into his mindset. So love all that. And now you're with DroneShield. So let's transition and talk a little bit about this company now that you've joined, Tom. My understanding it's headquartered in Australia, but with Australian and US operations. So tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so I've been with DroneShield quite a while now. Actually, the time's flying by. But one of the things that really drew me to DroneShield is the very simple solutions, modular, scalable solutions that are available to public safety and critical infrastructure. And although our solutions are used very heavily in the defense industry, my focus is more on the public safety critical infrastructure side, and I felt that the components and the capabilities were there that could really provide some awesome multi-sensor capabilities to public safety and critical infrastructure, and that's the area that I really wanted the challenge to kind of help grow that. As we saw with whatever you want to call happen in New Jersey.
I think they're calling it New Jersey Drone Gate.
New Jersey Drone Gate.
Yeah.
So yeah, whatever you want to call New Jersey, whatever you want to believe happened or didn't happen. I think one of the things that those series of incidents really opened up is the fact that we don't have a lot of drone detection technology out in protecting critical infrastructure. There's a gap in training for our law enforcement and security personnel. There's a gap in understanding from our lawmakers, because I think a lot of our lawmakers and political leaders don't really understand the airspace complexities as well as the drone threat or some of the drone rules and such. And so I think it highlighted some things that those of us that have been doing this for a while, including you, Don, is that we have a lot of gaps in technology, training, policies and procedures, all this kind of stuff. So I think it just really highlighted things that most of us have been tracking for quite a while.
Yeah, 100%, Tom. You and I have been working on this for a while. I was working on this even before counter UAS was a thing, right? Like when I was in the Air Force and working on the DoD policies, and that drone landed on the White House lawn in 2015, if you recall. I mean, this is not a new problem, but I think it is a great segue to talk a little bit about the threat to set the stage, because we're going to talk about DroneShield and all the things you guys bring to the table, but why it matters, I think, is important. What the problem you guys are trying to solve. So can you walk us through what we're seeing globally right now in terms of drone activity that merits concern for public safety, for critical infrastructure, as well as the DoD?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've all been watching over the past decade plus, even probably 20 years and beyond. There's a lot of people that have been talking about the drone threat for a couple decades now. So the fact that we're discussing it is really nothing new. But what we're seeing is that these, air superiority used to be a big thing when you're in a non-permissive type environment, combat environment, whatever you want to describe it. Nations such as the United States would spend, billions and billions of dollars to build aircraft and capabilities to have that air superiority. But what has changed with these low cost, easy to fly drones is now anyone can have a capability in which they can use an aerial platform for surveillance, to drop to drop, bombs, to drop, ordnance, anything like that. And so we've seen this evolution where, this can be done by just about anybody, from a small splinter group to a nation state. And, obviously we have various sizes of drones and capabilities and different payloads and sensors. But what we're seeing now is, two-dimensional, the gates, guns, and guards. I've said this before, but gates, guns, and guards are no longer the primary way in which you protect a facility, whether it be a venue, critical infrastructure, and such. We now have to worry about that third dimension, what's going on in the airspace around us. because we have a lot of people using that airspace, not only the traditional crude aircraft, but now we have public safety drones in the air. We have hobbyists flying. We have commercial operations going on. We have all these different users of the airspace, and with that comes the nefarious use of drones in addition to that. So, there's concerns about cybersecurity. Drones can carry some sort of a cyber hacking platform. They can drop a weapon. They can, gather information on industrial processes or conduct, commercial espionage, whatever you want. Whatever, it's really up to the imagination of the pilot and the capability of the sensors or the payloads in which they're carrying. So we're really seeing this evolution where airspace awareness is really key for a lot of different functions now, not only for security, but that airspace awareness is also enabling more advanced drone operations, such as drone as first responder and other beyond visual line of sight operations. And so it's amazing watching how all this is evolving really so quickly.
Well, yes, to all of it. And, Tom, I know you and I worked together a while ago on a white paper where we kind of, focused on the fact that words matter. We use counter UAS a lot, but, you really were pushing the use of airspace awareness and protection as the better way to frame the conversation. And, as you just posited this, with beyond visual line of sight operations and things like that, having that awareness of what's in the airspace and being able to protect it from nefarious actors or even careless and clueless actors is really going to be key as we see more and more things enter into our airspace. One thing you said that also resonated with me, I was just talking to General Poss yesterday. I know you know him well, and one thing he said a while ago that I love and is so true. The military in particular, we're training for a threat that might come across, right, the ocean or the globe, whether it's an ICBM missile or something like that, but he's like, we need to train for the threat that's going to come across the parking lot. And I think we're seeing this ever increasingly, of course, in theaters like what we see in with Russia and Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, everybody, we just had a great full crew on that topic. So if you didn't miss that, go check it out. Article on Autonomy Global launched, as well on that last week. So check that out. But I want to address something you said, because in discussing these threats and in discussing DroneGate in New Jersey in particular, you said there's a misunderstanding by a lot of our legislators or a lot of our leaders as to what airspace awareness and protection entails. And I want to talk a little bit about why stopping rogue drones or even just finding them is not as simple as people think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say one thing real quick on the airspace awareness piece of that. One of the reasons that I say things like airspace awareness and protection, there's a few reasons for that. One is that when I was new into this, into doing this, and when we, like DHS and DOJ and others were doing this for the first time, we're having to learn lessons about how to conduct these operations in the homeland security environment, in urban environments. And when New Jersey happened, I'll be honest with you, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it at the beginning, because I had experienced very small versions of New Jersey multiple times throughout my FBI counter drone career. And just to be slightly vulnerable, I didn't know everything then, and I still don't know everything now, and I probably never will. But I may have chased a few drones around the country, suspected blinking lights in the sky, going around and doing some investigations around critical infrastructure. And during operations, as well as some of those investigations, it became very clear that things like celestial bodies, low Earth orbit satellites, and other aircraft were misidentified as drones often. It happened all the time. And so that's where that airspace awareness piece comes in. You have to have a broad awareness of what's happening with crewed aircraft, celestial bodies, low Earth orbit satellites, all those other kinds of things, as well as some of the drones just so you can make a thorough threat assessment. That's a big important piece of that. And when I talk about protection, if you look at the federal statute related to kind of what defines counter UAS, it mainly focuses around the ability to disrupt, disable, and destroy drones, but not everybody has the capability to do that. And I think that you have to have a broader perspective of what that protection means. That protection can mean using authorized technologies to find and locate the pilot and ask him or her to land the drone, or you handle the situation from there. It can mean, it can also mean training, building your policies and procedures, doing tabletop exercises, building user requirements for drone technologies, working with your internal and external security stakeholders. There's so many things that can be done aside from the technology piece to build your counter drone, the foundation for your counter drone or your airspace awareness and protection program. So I want to throw that out real quick. But why is this so complex? So speaking from the homeland side, there are so many factors and variables that make this really complex. One is that we have a very open airspace that is regulated by the Federal Aviation Administration. We have both crewed and uncrewed aircraft that are in the airspace all the time. And being able to deconflict those types of operations in both restricted and unrestricted airspace is really important and very key. Going back to New Jersey again, we saw, I saw so many videos and pictures of people saying, hey, look at this drone flying over my house. I'm going to take a shotgun out and it happens to be a medevac helicopter. Or, hey, look at this drone that's got this really cool vertical stabilizer that looks surprisingly like an American Airlines logo.
I'm laughing, but it's not funny. I mean, Tom, I think right? Because you and I talked before I went live. I was on Fox News in December about this.
Yeah.
And Laura Ingraham from the Ingraham Angle, literally said, why don't we just shoot him out of the sky? And I'm like, Laura, because that would be illegal. I mean, and one thing I didn't get to say on that show, I also called Don Bershoff before, I call all my, phone a friend buddies that are experts about a lot of different things before I have to do something that important. And, Don said that he thought there could have even been a weather contributing factor because there was this Arctic blast of air that came down through New Jersey from Canada. And when you have air that cold, it really actually clears a lot of the junk out of the air. It makes it crystal clear, which, as you said, makes things appear lower and brighter. So this idea of, people scratch their head, oh yeah, celestial bodies, that's what people are reporting. Well, they do. And we saw that in Colorado, several years ago, same deal. Right? So, this is true. This isn't easy. I mean, we heard, leaders from New Jersey saying, just blanket the whole state with counter UAS. Well, not so simple. So Tom, let's transition to talk a little bit about fact versus fiction, because I think, there's a lot of myths out there. Let's be myth busters here in terms of counter UAS. So walk us through truth from fact when it comes to counter UAS. What are some of the misconceptions that people have that we can just clear the air to kind of take Don's comment about what happened with the weather, clear the air now in terms of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Don, the other Don is right also. In those clear nights, you can see lights from miles and miles away. And if you've never seen the space station fly over or in the vicinity of your house at 400 kilometers, 240 miles up in the air, it's quite fascinating. I was watching it over Michigan from the state of Virginia, where I was watching it from. That's how high up it is. And I have had a Planet actually called in as a drone during during an actual operation.
Wow.
But yeah, so a lot of people think that counter drone operations are just very simple, and that you install a piece of equipment, even if it's mitigation technology, pick any one mitigation technology or any one detection technology. That's only one piece of the puzzle. So you could have, let's say, for example, an RF detection sensor up.
And radio frequency. I mean, most of our viewers will know this, but
right.
For the two that don't, just to be clear.
Absolutely. So you could put up a radio frequency detection sensor, which is a great starting point for building your airspace awareness program. However, drones fly in a lot of different frequencies. Some of them are kind of odd. And then some drones don't fly via RF at all. They could be on a waypoint mission where they're just listening for their, the GPS satellite signals and they're navigating, or they could be, like we've seen in Ukraine with these drones that are flying with fiber optic cables.
Right. We did talk about that on the full crew too, last month as well, and this month. It keeps coming up because it's like the technology keeps evolving.
Yeah.
And there, as you said, there's not one size fits all solution. So, let's talk about this myth that, you know what I want to talk about, Tom? I'm going to deviate from the script because you and I wrote a white paper on this together. Let's talk about the myth that remote ID is the be all and end all.
Yeah. So the reason that we wrote that white paper, can you believe it's been 2 years?
I know. Isn't that crazy?
So one of the reasons that we felt the need to write about remote ID is that some lawmakers and some special interest groups had the opinion that, okay, we've got remote ID, we don't need any other counter drone technology now, we can just use remote ID. And the other big piece of that too with remote ID too is I think a lot of people were misinterpreting what remote ID meant. So to me, remote ID is a data point that someone can use as part of their threat assessment. But what some people were doing is they were taking that to kind of be an extreme view where if they were basically saying, hey, if a drone is not broadcasting remote ID, then it must be labeled as a threat and it should be mitigated. And my point is how do you know it's not broadcasting remote ID? You may not have a sensor close enough to receive that signal, because in a lot of cases those remote ID signals there's not a lot of power behind them, so the range may be fairly limited. And so we need to consider remote ID as just a data point and not as the data point. It should be one of many data points that you look at. And the other thing too is for drones that were, there's not going to be a lot of compliance in the remote ID. I am for remote ID. I want it to work. I don't know that it's really working as intended to really enable a lot of these advanced drone operations. But I think the important thing with remote ID is it's a data point. It's one data point to consider, but it's not the data point. You have to look at other threat indicators like where is the drone flying? Is it carrying a payload? If you know that, is it flying in restricted airspace? Is it flying over critical infrastructure? Is it harming people? Those are the types of things that you should really look at, not just whether or not it's broadcasting remote ID.
No, I think that's great. So I like the power of threes. I want to stick with three myths. And we talked about the first one being, kind of, there really is no one size fit all, right? Like that is the truth, not the myth. You busted the myth that, hey, one thing is good enough usually. And then, the second one being that remote ID is the be all and end all. I want to talk about this idea that some people have, and I don't know why, that the only people that really need the authority, that the only people this is really important to is the military.
Yeah, one thing to go back with the first one, I'll address the military thing here real quick. When I was talking about the RF detection piece,
mm-hmm.
I know I like to focus on some of the payloads and some of the tactics, techniques, and procedures that maybe nefarious drone operators might be using to conduct operations. But one of the things that I really look at is the ways in which drones navigate through the airspace. To me, that dictates the type of awareness technologies that you have, as well as some of the types of protection technologies that you use. So we always advocate for a multi-sensor approach to drone detection, with radio frequency detection, cameras, radars, and acoustic is another good fourth option. That same capability or technique also applies to the defeat side of things. There's RF jamming, cyber takeover. Those are great solutions, but if the drone's not navigating via RF, then those solutions aren't going to work very well. So that's when you start to have some other kinetic options that can impact the the ability of the drone to fly, whether it's, some sort of a kinetic option, shotgun, net, hunter capture drone, lasers, all those different types of things. So you really have to have a multi-layered approach for both airspace awareness and protection type of thing. So skipping on to the military side of things, this used to be a military focused mission until some of these platforms became available to the masses. And so I never thought that I would be doing a air defense type mission, but here's where it is. I think what a lot of people think, one of the big myths is that because we associate this mission with the military, is that it's really complex and it's very difficult to learn, or the equipment is really difficult to operate, and that's not necessarily the case. One of the things that we at DroneShield talk about quite a bit is that we kind of talk about counter UAS simplified, in that these systems that we have and we have available to both public safety and critical infrastructure are systems that you can learn to use rather quickly, sometimes within less than 30 minutes. With our RF patrol, I can teach you how to use a very simple RF detection tool that you can hold in your hand, you can install in a vehicle, and you can use to protect temporary or fixed site areas. And so that is a myth, that this is really only a military mission and that it's very complex. There are a lot of complexities to it, but there are systems out there like what we sell that are easy for the operator to use and deploy, and can really handle a wide range of different airspace awareness and protection missions.
Well, that's also a great transition then to let's just talk about some of these then, Tom. I know you all have dismounted counter drone solutions. So walk us through a couple of these, and then let's get into the on the move expeditionary, because I know they're very related.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our important systems that really has a lot of interest from a wide range of users in the public safety and critical infrastructure communities is our RF Patrol. It is a handheld RF detection system that covers a wide range of frequencies. And you can use those for a variety of missions, from executive protection to protecting stadiums to having protecting critical infrastructure. And what's nice about these is you can use them by themselves. We can push the data to the to TAC or ATAC. We can push it to a laptop. We can push it to a lighter version of our command and control system called C2 Tactical. So there's a wide range of ways in which you can use these systems. You can interact with them. But then if you have a fixed site system, which we'll probably get into a little bit later, where you have integrated RF, camera, radar, acoustic, whatever you may have, those systems can actually be integrated into those greater fixed site systems. So you might have a mobile RF patrol in a police car or a security vehicle, and it's gathering data from around the area in which you're operating, but it's feeding into that greater command and control interface that has those other sensors. So it's nice to have that flexibility, adaptability, and scalability, because this is as we've mentioned before, there are a lot of complexities to this mission.
Yeah.
And one of the hardest things with doing this mission, when I was doing this mission, is where to find and place sensors, because there's very rarely did we ever find the ideal location in which we could install a system. And so we used a term that we called the least worst location. That's where we tried to find, is the least worst location. But when you have some of these mobile type systems, you can fill gaps depending on where your other systems may already be installed.
Now, what's the one we're looking at here in this image, Tom?
That's the Drone Sentry X Mark II. There's two versions of it. There's a detect only version where it can detect a wide range of frequencies, provide line of bearing. Then there's a detect and defeat version that has all the same capabilities of the detect only version, but it also has the ability to jam specific frequencies that the drones typically operate on. So there's a little bit of scalability and flexibility in there. What's nice about those two is you can really set exactly how you want to what frequencies you want to spend time detecting. So there's a lot of flexibility within the system itself, depending on what your mission use case is and what you're trying to achieve with your security goals.
Well, and my understanding is there's an expeditionary version of this, because you mentioned, one of the part of the myth about this is only relevant to the DoD is that it's complex, it's hard to learn, it's hard to set up. Even in the military, it can't be hard to learn or set up because things happen quickly, right? So your expeditionary kit, my understanding is it can be deployed in like under 10 minutes. Is that true?
It can be set up very quick. The handheld RF patrol can be set up within a minute or two. And I was a private once. I was an Army private at one time, so you got to keep things simple for former Army privates like
And
me.
for the dudes in suits that look like Men in Black here in this picture.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta keep it simplified. So I think that's really important. You want it to be simple, you want it to work, and you want it to be effective. And so that's what a lot of our engineering is focused on, is the simplicity and the functionality of the systems. But I think, because this security mission is really challenging, having some scalability is really important. So you mentioned the expeditionary piece. You can set it up relatively quickly, less than 10 minutes if you're going really slow and take a coffee break. So that's really easy. But that system can also be mounted on a vehicle. That larger system can be mounted on a vehicle for on the move applications. Same thing with the RF Patrol. We actually have a magnetic antenna kit where you can temporarily install a magnetic mount on top of the vehicle. So now you can hold it, wear it on your body. Now you're on the move. You can quickly install a magnetic antenna kit and be on the road, and then take it apart and put it back into its handheld configuration. And with the RF Patrol, with the DroneSentry X Mark II, you can have it set up on a tripod, an airfield building. You can also install it on top of a vehicle and have on the move capability. So it's nice having that flexibility. We're not just stuck to use it. I can only use it here. Now you can move it if you need to, depending on your mission, if you're moving, or if you have some VIP protection operations, or you're trying to fill some gaps. So again, that's where that scalability and adaptability becomes really important in this mission.
Well, and you had mentioned effectors, and you guys also have the drone gun, right? So
Right.
Tell us a little bit about those. I mean, it's an interesting name, I think, because what is it firing exactly?
It's basically a handheld directional RF jammer. And when I talked about the DroneSentry X Mark II, I talked about the detect and defeat version. On the DroneSentry X Mark II, it's an omnidirectional jammer. With the Drone Gun Mark IV, it is a directional jammer that is capable of interrupting the communications between the ground control station and the drone for a wide range of common drone frequencies that drones operate on. So it's a great tool to have. It's used by a lot of security and military forces worldwide. It's very packable, portable. So imagine even a soldier, sailor, airman, Marine,
Don't forget our Guardians. I know they fight in space, but they're still on the ground for now.
Yeah. An astronaut could have a drone gun hovering around the space station. But
there you go. You may need it.
but yeah, it's a nice, very portable drone defeat tool. It's a protection tool that's portable, that can be it's easily used. It's got the form factor that a lot of people are familiar with. It's very light, portable. It's kind of got the same feel as an M4. Even the safety switch that you would flick with your thumb is the same as what you'd find on an M4. So it's once people hold it in their hand, like, okay, yeah, if you've been in military or law enforcement, you're like, okay, I understand how to use this, and that particular system, you can learn how to use that within just a few minutes. It's super simple. Again, counter UAS simplified. It doesn't have to be that complex. What the hard part is just understanding the airspace rules, the laws, regulations, and being able to do a proper threat assessment. And again, a lot of these systems, we do have a lot of left and right limits right now with our current laws and regulations. But I'm really cautiously optimistic that we're going to see some significant changes this year. So we're hoping to see where we can expand the use of some of these technologies with some of our public safety and critical infrastructure partners.
Yeah, I hope so too. And just kind of some highlights about, the functionality of these systems. You mentioned kind of plug and play in terms of interoperability within your own system, but I want to talk about compatibility with other systems because, Tom, you know as well as I do, it's not just the military that's looking for kind of open system architecture, if you will, the ability to not be wedded to one system, have systems from different companies talking to each other easily, or legacy systems that can, that you could plug new technology into and still work. So tell us a little bit about the different types of compatible systems with what you guys offer.
Yeah, so we work very closely with a lot of other industry partners. As an example, we work with Echodyne, which is a radar company based out of Seattle, Washington. So we've integrated their EchoGuard and EchoShield radars into our DroneSentry C2 software, integrated with our DroneSentry X Mark II radio frequency detection system. And so adding a camera into that, whether it's a FLIR camera or a Bosch camera, or if we have a customer who wants a specific camera radar integrated into our C2 platform or integrated with our DroneSentry X Mark II, we can certainly do that. But when you add in all those other components, now you have a more complete multi-sensor system that has a better chance of being successful than if you just had one sensor by itself. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I watch very closely the ways in which drones navigate through the airspace. That's going to dictate the types of systems that you use to both detect and defeat drones that you've assessed as a credible threat to the event venue critical infrastructure asset that you're protecting. So that piece, the ability to work with other partners that have other RF detection or defeat systems, cameras, radars, kinetic defeat systems and such, that's the key to your success. You can't just put out a product and put your blinders on and not be ready to work with other people, because there's really no unicorn solution out there that can detect and defeat all drones. You have to work together with other people. Counter UAS is a team sport, believe it or not. It's just not something you watch on TV, but it is a team sport for sure.
It is for sure. And, it's not just hardware. And I think we tend to focus on the hardware because that's what we see, but there's a big software component behind this. So tell us a little bit about the software you all employ and what makes it so effective for detection and tracking.
Yeah, thankfully we have a lot of smart engineers that are not only creating useful products and building great software platforms and putting out software updates. I mean, one of the big challenges with investing in this type of technology is that you're afraid that you buy it and it's just static and it's going to be out of date real soon. And what's nice about what we're doing is that we put out software updates quarterly on a lot of our systems, whether it's our RF Patrol, DroneSentry X Mark II, C2 Tactical, DroneSentry C2 command and control software. So we're always updating with new capabilities, whether it's new drone makes and models that come out, new background algorithms, or anything that we've learned from tactics, techniques, and procedures that we learned from things happening in Ukraine, or other ways in which drones are deployed that we need to make adjustments to our systems to keep our technology on the cutting edge. And so there's a lot of, I think, I don't know exactly what the exact percentage is, but I would bet, well, for sure the majority of our employees at DroneShield are engineering technical backgrounds. It's probably got to be close to 60-75% of our companies made up of people with those types of backgrounds, and so they're absolutely crucial to keeping us on the cutting edge and ensuring that our technology is ready to handle this quickly evolving threat. Having that scalability and flexibility and future-proofing your systems is really important with this industry.
Yeah, we talked a lot about that on our recent full crew, this idea of a cat and mouse game or spy versus spy. It's like Now you've got FPV drones with using fiber optic cables. Now you've got a defeat mechanism for that very solution, and it's just one after the other. And staying up with that, I imagine, AI is something you're employing with regard to autonomous threats, multi-sensor fusion. We're seeing that not just in counter drone, we're seeing that across the board. Everywhere I looked at GeoWeek, it was multiple sensors on one platform that, kind of all fuse that data together for one particular effect. And then, of course, something we don't talk a lot about, but frankly, I have an article coming out soon on Autonomy Global from our friend Zev Nadler, directed energy weapons. That's something that most people don't think about as a solution, but I know that's something you guys are looking at as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've done some work with Epirus as an example that has a high power microwave type solution, and depending on what our customers need, if what's interesting is I have calls with interested customers or interested end users every week, and there's no one conversation that is exactly the same. Everybody wants a little bit something different, and in cases where a customer has a unique solution, well, that's where we can have further discussions about what it would take to integrate that piece of hardware or software into our system as needed, just to make sure that they have an effective solution that meets their unique requirements. I wish there was a cookie cutter way that you could apply some of these multi-sensor solutions, but every environment's a little bit different, whether it's a critical infrastructure, stadium, municipality, prison. It's all a little bit different. They're in different areas. They have different terrain, environment, other RF interference considerations, user requirements. It's all really unique, but it kind of makes it fun that the job is never boring because each day is just a little bit different.
No, no one size fits all. And, the answer for a particular solution is the lawyer answer. It depends, right?
So it's true.
Yeah. So true. So I knew our time would fly, Tom, and we're getting close to that, kind of that end point here. But, I want to truncate this question and just ask you for the one best tip that you would give to an organization out there, that whether they be military, law enforcement, infrastructure, asset owner, what is the one biggest tip you would say that they need to consider in developing a counter drone strategy?
I'm going to step back to the very basics, and my approach when I speak with people is I like to educate them because whether they no matter what solution that they want to choose, I want to make sure that they have all the tools and resources to make the best possible decision, because this is something that's really new to a lot of people. And so that's one of the reasons why I enjoy this work that I do, is I can build upon my operational experience to give them the operator view and some of the challenges and mistakes, frankly, that I made during my career, as well as some of the successes we had too. So I think the big thing is to continue to educate yourself on not only the mission, on drones, on everything, because that'll help you to make a more informed decision. There are a lot of complexities to this, but if you can start to eat this elephant one bite at a time, and starting out with educating yourself there's some great guides, references, and textbooks out there. So I would encourage people to start there first. And then that way, when you start to talk to other vendors, that you can have a more educated, focused conversation that's not so focused on you're trying to learn it while you're also trying to learn the technology. It can be really daunting at times. So I would say just educate yourself. And I'm always happy to, I sometimes have conversations with people where we don't really talk about technology. We talk about the art of the possible and what counter UAS is all about, to kind of build that foundation. And then we'll have another conversation about technology later on. And they're very productive at that point.
Awesome. That's awesome. On that note, I know you're always out there educating. You're always out at different events, Tom. And by the way, shameless plug, Tom will be involved in our Law Tech Connect again this year at AUVSI Exponential on May 19th. If you haven't signed up for that yet, please do. It's still early bird pricing. Not only do you get our workshop, you get the happy hour Sunday night and a full week running around the expo hall floor for $249.
It's awesome.
You really can't beat it. And we have amazing people like Tom, and of course Mike, our producer, will be there as well. So you get to see him in human form. But Tom, where else are you going to be? You're going to be at Drone Responders. You're here this week.
Yeah, Drone Responders this week, and I will be at AVSI Expo again. I'm looking forward to being. It's my third year in a row doing Law Tech Connect, so I'm really excited to see that. It's such a great program. I'm unfortunately not going to be able to stay the whole week for AVSI Expo because my youngest daughter is graduating high school that week, so I'm going to have to skip out after about half a day of the actual expo piece. So. But I'm looking forward to, yeah, I'll be there. We'll be at a couple other places too. There's just so many different conferences and events. It's really hard to keep track of them all, but I'm on the road a lot, getting a lot of Marriott points.
Well, very good. And Tom, if folks aren't on the road with you, what is the best way for them to reach you to learn more about DroneShield?
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me directly. Email address is tom.adams@droneshield.us or droneshield.com. Either one will get to me. But tom.adams@droneshield.us or droneshield.com. And happy to talk counter UAS. Happy to talk technology or options. But just want to continue to educate people and do what we can to increase the safety and security of the homeland. And it's just going to be, you have to be kind of one critical infrastructure and one public safety agency at a time, but we're going to get there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Tom. It was great having you in the show. And thanks everybody out there for your time and attention. Follow Tom, check him out. And obviously, if you're at one of these events where he's at, make sure you stop and say hello. That's it for now, everybody. We are out here.
Thanks, everybody.